Oh,
jeez.
You're going to scare a lot of people. Here we go.
There you go.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one!
Oladipo!
Another one!
Huge hole. He's at the 30. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown. Jonathan Taylor.
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
He hit it.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Jim Coyle with you, of course, as always, coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway here at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Don't forget, Indiana Sports Beat Radio is powered by Andy Moore Honda. Bloomington, just get more to your door by going to andymoorehonda.com. And Endeavor Hospitality's family of restaurants in and around the Bloomington area. Great places like BB's Market, where I'm hopefully I'll stop by there tomorrow to do the show because we're going to be gone about every weekend for the next foreseeable future. This is the feast first weekend. Dustin Schutte, I'll bring him in as well. Of course, the man, the myth, the legend.
I'm legendary, baby. I got on an Argyle sweater today, so you know I'm looking good.
Argyle sweater.
What's wrong with a good Argyle? You don't like a nice Argyle?
There's nothing wrong with the good old. I don't have an Argyle. That is no longer in my collection. I noticed I have a very distinct style, pretty much. You see this quarter zip pullover?
Yeah, that's what you got.
There is a rack of it's the go-to, man. It's just easy.
They're easy. They're comfortable. They look good. I'm a fan of the quarter zips. I only have 3 or 4 of them, but I like them.
Oh my God. I've got like 25.
Or those polo, like those windbreak.
Well, I have to. See, that's another thing. I have to think about what I wear on here every stinking day. So I don't wear the same thing.
This is probably the most dressed up I've ever been for this show, to be quite honest with you.
I think we should one day we should do a dress up version. We'll wear ties even though the radio audience won't be able to see it, we can talk about it.
I was going to say I'd be Dapper Dustin. I don't know.
He's already given himself his own moniker.
I am Dapper Dustin. I was trying to think of something that goes with Coyle or Jim. C would probably be easier.
Yeah, there's not much that goes with anything there. How's everybody doing today? Hope you're having a great start to your day. Hello to everybody down on the river on the ref. Always the right call, WREF 97.7 ESPN. Our good friends up in the region listening on 12:30 a.m. 104.7 FM. WJOB, the voice of the region. Hope everyone's having a great start to your day. Hello, Kent from Mount Pleasant, Michigan. I've been there. Listening to us on YouTube. Appreciate that, and you can do the same. And make sure when you do, you hit the subscribe button. And for those of you that are users of Twitter, if each and every one of you that's listening right now just gave me a follow, that would be great. At Jim Coyle ISB, and you can give one to at Schutte Dustin as well. I love backwards names.
Well, I tried to just go first name, last name, but that had been taken apparently.
Well, of course, but why didn't you just put a number behind it?
Like my birth year, Schutte Dustin,
whatever.
88.
Who cares? You could have been 01, like the Dukes of Hazzard.
I could have been. I don't really have a number that ties to me though. Like I played basketball and football in junior high and through freshman year, but that was it. I didn't have like a high school number. So there's no number that ties with me, I guess.
Oh, Robert's coffee maker's running a little slow. Not mine. It was running.
Oh.
Well, actually, it was. I had it set to auto and go down, and nothing has happened. I'm like, what the hell? Spring forward, the only clock in the house in the place in the joint that did not get refixed was the coffee maker.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. You never think to change the coffee pot timer.
Well, I wouldn't have either. Travis, how are you doing? A lot of people hitting us up early and often on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. I better go back up. There's a whole bunch.
Here's a question that seems to always come around during the week of daylight savings time. My car clock is now correct. Does anybody?
Yes, mine. See, I have two, and they're right, and they're only like 6 inches. One's above the other. One's analog, and one's not.
Well, that seems dangerous.
Like one's with the radio or something, Then there's then there's just this round clock that has hands, and that one was easy to fix, but I couldn't figure out how to fix the stupid digital one again.
Yeah,
but it's right. So I'm like going, you're right, we're good.
I was going to say
and now we're all good. So I'm like going, yes.
I never change it. I never change it when we fall back. I never change it. I'm just like, I'll wait till March. I'll put up with it for 5 months. Do you remember in the old vehicles, you used to have to take like a needle or a pen to change and get inside and poke the hour and the minute? Now, most of the vehicles that I've owned have like you can just touch it. There's a button where you can fix it.
It's called
back in the old days.
Dustin.
I know, but I'm just saying we got to go back in the old days. You get that pencil sharpened to go out and change your clock on your car.
The portal. That's right. The portal's open, man. And you can keep track at thehoosier.com. Need to get that open, as a matter of fact. See any big names in it? Have you seen any names in it? I promise you, I have not had time to look at it. Yesterday I counted. I was talking to someone. I said, all right, hold on. Let me sit back. Because I have 3 screens here at the studio at the studio desk. And so I can have as much information as possible. I was trying to book travel still through yesterday for the NCAA tournament. I had 32 screens open. I counted them. I said, hold on, let me count these. I started counting 32 screens of different stuff that I was trying to work on. Flights, hotel, different flights, different times from different cities.
Was there smoke coming out of your monitors?
Oh, it was smoke coming out of my ears.
Yeah, I can imagine that. If I get past 7, we got a problem. I'm going to have to start closing some things.
John said he's thinking of putting his name in the portal. 4 years remaining. Southern Brown County. John C. wants to make sure we give the Lady Hoosiers some love today. Of course, number 1 seed. Waiting for things to get started, up and running. We'll be following them as well. Of course, different locations, unfortunately.
Can I tell you that I love how the women's tournament is run? And I know they're not going to do it. Because
how do you mean?
I love that you get home.
Because they would not have agreed with you. Was it last year or a year before last?
No, that was the COVID year. And yes. So not how they were treated previous to the pandemic year, 2021, I think was when all that stuff came out.
I think it was more recent than that.
Well, that was just 2 years ago.
Yeah. No, COVID year was 2020. Well, yeah. 3 years ago.
But it would have been the year that they didn't have really any fans. So 2020, 2021. But I love how they do like the home court advantage. I wish if you were a number 1 seed, like I wish that the men would do that. I know they're not, but like to me, that gives you more incentive of what you're playing for throughout the regular season, the conference tournament, that sort of thing. That's always been something I thought would be cool, is if they did home court advantage for a team that was the number 1 seed. I don't know, is it 1 through 4 that gets home court advantage in those tournaments? I think.
Jim B being held up on I-69 for 30 minutes hasn't moved. Man,
That's tough.
Might as well watch the show. Well, I'm glad that he was inspired to do that. Just kidding. There's usually that's not a high traffic interstate.
Well, yeah, probably not a good sign that it's been blocked for 30 minutes then.
No, it's not. Travis saying, hey, how you doing? Justin loves the early morning topics. Hey, yeah, we mix it up. Try to get everybody has something to say or what's on their mind. Get to that before we get to the guest. Kent up in Mount Pleasant. I think dang, no, that's two different people in Mount Pleasant, isn't it? What, are you kidding me? That's amazing. Little pocket in Mount Pleasant of IU fans. Appreciate you. Was up in Chicago all weekend. For the Big Ten tournament. Again, for all you listeners, WJLB. 12:30 a.m., 104.7. Heard all through Northwest Indiana and across the Chicagoland area. Joe, how are you, sir? Hope you're having a good start to your day, man. No Joe from the old days. Chef JD. I hope to see you tomorrow, Chef JD. May have to move the show tomorrow to BB's since now the weekends, the Fridays are booked.
So I was going to ask, are your travel plans made, or did you have to reset everything? Okay.
No, everything is finally done.
Good.
I had original flights that I had to cancel. So that's another thing. You're trying to do this as quick as possible because you're going to get screwed. Airlines are going to. You don't have 7 days notice, first of all. So you're like, oh my God, this is going to be bad. Then you got to start playing beat the clock, and that's why I'm looking at flights from Louisville, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, because but I got it done.
You got to get the best deal possible.
Well, you got it. Just got to get there. It gets to the point where there were a lot of flights that were like Southwest. A lot of their flights, sold out, man.
Really? Well, I mean, I guess,
huh?
I mean, I guess because it's so last minute, I guess that makes sense.
Well, and plus, I mean, there's people going, and it's in New York, so unless you want to drive, there's only one other way to get there, and it ain't by boat.
And I'm guessing not a lot of people are going to want to drive to New York.
Not Albany.
No.
If it was in New York City,
You think more people would drive to New York City?
I'm not saying more than they would to Albany. Yes, New York City is not that far from here.
Okay. Well, I want to know the hours on that because I feel like that's a lie. Number two, I can't imagine having a car in New York City. Like that, there is nothing that interests. Chicago is about as extreme as I will go.
It's a 12-hour drive from here to New York.
That's a long drive.
It is. I mean, it's a long. It's not like
it's
24
not 30
hours. I mean, 12 hours is doable.
Yeah,
I mean, that is people drive to the beach all the time.
That's
they drive
true.
At 12 hours.
I would break it up into 2 6-hour days.
Well, you could do that, and you could.
I'm going to get ridiculed for that.
No, I'm trying to see how. It doesn't.
See, the 12 hours isn't the part that bothers me. Having the car in New York City
where the hell's Pennsylvania?
Would be the part that drives me nuts because I have no idea. What are you going to do with it? Hey, I guess you're going to have to park it. You're going to drive it in the city? No chance I'm doing that ever.
That's something I wouldn't have thought of. My God.
I mean, I would drive my car there and I would leave it there. I just park it along the side of the road and somebody else can have it. I'll buy a new car as opposed to driving in New York City because I do
Sky
not
Clark visiting Louisville. Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's Sky Clark is the 5-star.
Also, you may have missed this. They received a commitment from 5-star Dennis Evans, who was previously committed to Minnesota.
Wow.
Well, there you go. You talk about Louisville and their troubles, and it doesn't take – it just takes a few correct bounces of the ball for things to change, I guess you'd say. But for those, I guess, doubting Kenny Payne, whether he was going to be there, you start landing recruits like that, that answers that question in a hurry.
Yep.
And I don't know what went on with Sky Clark. He's a kid that is a former teammate of Jalen Hood-Schifino at Montverde University, or Montverde Academy, rather, my bad. And he ended up originally committed to Kentucky, I think. Or
that's correct.
Duke, one of the two, and ended up at Illinois, but transferred out of Illinois. And so you can imagine that, look at Illinois, if they would have had him.
Well,
I don't know what went on with him, what happened, but things didn't work out.
Yeah. Well, they struggled. I'm not going to put it all on the kid, but they struggled when he was on the roster, and they started to pick it up a little bit. They've been a bit of a roller coaster this season, like Indiana has been. But I think that them going separate ways was probably beneficial for both parties, is my takeaway from that.
John's in snowy Cincinnati. We're on WKRP. No, I'm just kidding. For WKRP in Cincinnati. I love that show. Robert's waiting for the Colts to trade their pick for another geriatric quarterback and another slew of 5th and 6th round picks. I wonder what they're going to do. It is going to be interesting. Boy, that one got you. You like that one, huh?
Because it's so accurate. Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan. It's so good. That's such an accurate statement. Oh, that's good.
I think you must have been right. That must have been 2020 that happened. I mean, I know that was. We've got to take a break. When we come back, the great Mike DeCourcy joins us. He has been a busy man. Oh my goodness. Maybe we'll talk about brackets. He is Mikey Brackets, the bracket analyst. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from GoTeam, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality family of networks. When for those of you on the go, it's hard to find good, healthy, tasty snacks. This one's full of protein and great tasting as well. You can pick them up at BB's or just GoTeamBites.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Jim. How are you?
I am great. We're unpacking and repacking, and
I know the feeling.
I'm not going to shave until Wednesday and see if I can. I don't think I can make it. I can't make it all the way through, but I made it all the way through Chicago with one shave.
Oh my! Amazing. Saving on those razor blades.
It's not that. I don't even know what it is. It's funny because I don't mind shaving either.
Yeah, see, for me, I can't not shave. I like, if I don't shave, I feel like I don't wake up all day.
Yeah. Well, I used to shave every day too.
Let me tell you guys, I got no problem with it.
Shaving that head.
I do need to shave my head. I'm on the move tomorrow, so I'm going to do that today.
I haven't been completely clean shaven since 2019.
Wow.
Well,
you mean on your face?
If I go completely clean shaven, I've got kind of a Charlie Brown situation happening. So I keep some facial hair here.
10 years if I shave.
A lot of people think I look better with it, even though it's not.
All
fully
I can
grown
think about
in.
is the one hair coming out of somebody's head right there.
It's,
when you said Charlie Brown, man.
It's much better to just keep it and then just make sure you don't have the neck beard going on.
Oh, I never have that, buddy. That gets shaven almost every time I shave.
Mike, I saw you wagging your finger when Jim called you Mikey Buckets.
Yes.
Did you not like that?
Don't do that.
It wasn't buckets, it was brackets, by the way.
Brackets, excuse me.
I'll take buckets. I just don't want to be like Joe's, less successful stepchild or something.
Aren't you more accurate than he is historically?
This year, I got 67 out of 68 teams, but my bracket was spoiled by the committee's overvaluing of the Western mid-majors and undervaluing of the Eastern mid-majors. They gave Grand Canyon a 14 seed for finishing 5th in their league. Come on.
Wow.
What the heck is that?
I thought Grand Canyon was one of those online universities.
Well, I think they changed that. I think
I'm kidding.
I think they've got a campus.
I'm kidding. All they do because they've got their coach is still the former NBA player, isn't it?
Bryce Drew. No, it's not. It's not. It's not Marley. It's Bryce Drew.
Oh,
he also is a former NBA player.
With a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. It is madness because the madness has begun. The NCAA tournament actually starts today, I guess you'd say. Mike DeCourcy, the man of the hour with BTN, as well as the Sporting News, pulling double duty. Mr. Accuracy is what we should call him.
Oh, I wish I were more accurate this year.
67 out of 68. That's pretty damn good.
Yes, but I lost points for my. I think I only had one team that I can think of that was more than a line off, but I missed a lot of lines on the bottom seeds. I shouldn't say it that way. The committee missed a lot of lines on the bottom.
There you go.
I like it.
And I will start with Grand Canyon being a 14 seed after finishing 5th in their league. I'm sorry. No. Can I say that louder? No. They should not have been a 14 seed. They were lucky to get in. Did a good job in their conference tournament, but they finished 5th in their league. Sorry, that's not good enough. I had Kennesaw as a 15. They were a 14. I thought they really roughed up. Like Colgate hasn't lost a game since like 1932 or something, and yet they were a 15 seed. I didn't think that was a reasonable assessment of what they'd accomplished this year. So they wind up as a 15. Vermont a 15 as well. I didn't think the committee did a very good job of seeding the bottom of the bracket, but that's why my scores weren't as high this year as they were a year ago.
Well, and it seemed like on Selection Sunday, there was only maybe one gripe that I heard, and I'd like to get your take on it. Rutgers not making the tournament. It seemed
That sure seemed to be the loudest.
That seemed to be the loudest. There didn't seem to be a lot of teams where you could make a strong argument, but I think Rutgers was right on that cusp where if you're going to have a gripe, that was maybe the one. What was your take on Rutgers being left out?
I think the committee leaves out a qualified NCAA tournament team about once every 6 or 7 years, maybe 5. And this was it. This was a terrible decision, really unfair to the Rutgers players and coaches and their fans. Nevada did nothing, absolutely nothing to belong in this field. The entire Mountain West, I call it the Mountain West metric mirage. They beat nobody. And yet they got 4 teams into the tournament. San Diego State, I have great respect for their program. I didn't think they had their best year. I thought their schedule was kind of meager for what they had coming back. But they earned their way in and they earned to a decent seed. But absolutely not in any way should they have gotten 3 teams beyond that, and certainly not the 4th, Nevada. And if you look at The bracket matrix has, I think, 200 brackets on it now, which is it's people from people like me and Palm and Lenardi, Katz and Shelby Mast and people like that, all the way down to I shouldn't say all the way down, but all the way through people who just do it for fun. And so out of those 200 brackets, I think Rutgers was in around 190 of them.
Wow.
And Nevada was in like 47, I think. So it tells you how really poorly the committee did on this one. And the worst part about the decision on Rutgers was that they judged Rutgers to have fallen off tournament quality because of their late struggles subsequent to the injury of Mawat Mag. And those struggles were real.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had gone to Chicago last week and played anything like they had played for those last 2 to 3 weeks of February, they would have deserved to be left out. And I don't think they would have argued it. If they'd gone out against Michigan and lost by 10 or 12 or 15, I don't think they would have complained. I think they would have said, yeah, well, we made a case, but we're not that team now. But they went out and they handled Michigan. I mean, they owned that game. And then they played Purdue, one of the committee. This is not my opinion, although it is. But the committee said Purdue's a number 1 seed. And
Right.
Rutgers said, yeah, but we're 5 points worse than them. We are right there with them. And they left them out. They did not punish any other team in the field for player injuries. They didn't punish UCLA for the absence of Jalen Clark. They didn't punish Tennessee for the absence of Zakai Ziegler. They didn't punish Houston for the uncertainty around Marcus Sasser and his groin injury. And I don't think they should. I don't think that I was sort of at ground zero of this particular aspect of the NCAA tournament because I was the Cincinnati Bearcats beat writer in 2000 when Kenyon Martin broke his leg. I was right there. I saw everything. I reported on everything. And I wrote a column for Sporting News that night that said absolutely not they should touch the Cincinnati number 1 seed because they don't have anything to judge them by. They had 36 minutes without Kenyon, and they lost to a team that ended up winning the conference tournament and going to the tournament. If Kenyon had played that game fully and they had lost it, which is conceivable, teams lose NCAA tournament, conference tournament games lots of times. Pitt in 2011 lost. You may remember the Kemba Walker ankle break of Pitt's center. They lost the quarterfinal game. They still were a number 1 seed, and they weren't as accomplished as that Cincinnati team. So if they had played and lost that game with Kenyon, they still would have been a 1. But without him, they just guessed. Committee should never guess. And then 2, that year, Arizona had a center named Lauren Woods, 7'1", was a good player his junior year that year, a much better player the following year when Arizona made the Final Four and the national championship game. Lauren Woods gets hurt with about 2 weeks left in the season. They played 4 games after Lauren's injury. They lost 2 of them. And I remember distinctly asking the committee chair that year, and then, by the way, parenthetically, Arizona's AD was on the committee. I remember distinctively asking the committee chair, why did you allow Arizona to still be a 1 with Lauren out and take out Cincinnati? And they said, well, we had a chance to evaluate Arizona without Lauren Woods. They were a 500 team. I mean, what are we doing?
Right.
So I don't think they should punish people for injuries, but they not only punished Arizona by putting them in the first 4 or something like that, they punished them by leaving them out. This committee, I'll be honest with you, this is the worst committee performance in a while, because to leave out a qualified tournament team and to misplace Kansas in the West when Houston played 6 games against high quality teams this year, and they lost 2 of them. 6 games.
And Kansas played like 21 or something.
Exactly. And Kansas lost 7 of them, I think. I think Kansas was like 14-7 in their tough games. But if you're going to judge basically on teams that win 2/3 of their toughest games, wouldn't you want the one that played more than half of their season against the tougher teams than the team that played less than, basically a 5th? But the computer, come on, man, we're better than this. Like, If Ken Palm were flawless or the net were flawless, then all the highest net ranking teams would win every game or the majority of the games. And I don't think that's what's going to happen. We'll see. Go ahead. Make out a bracket that's totally by the net or totally by Ken's rankings and see if it does better than the one that you do yourself. I just don't think that the ratings are the end all. Do you look at them and consider it? Sure. But then you say, okay, well, what's behind that? What's on the next page? Utah State, they're 20th in Ken Palm or 18th and they're in the net and they're 18th or whatever. Okay. What's on the next page? Nothing. Blank page. Played 8 games, I believe it was, against tournament teams from their own league. They played, I believe it was, and they won 3. They're under 500 against the tournament teams from their own league, but they're a 10 seed. I mean, in no way do I think the committee did a good job here. As I said, in the times I've been doing the brackets, which is only 3 years, easily the worst. And I think it goes back considerably farther than that.
Go ahead, Dustin.
Well, one of the things I like to do with the brackets is this isn't about the net, but I like to fill out one, and then I do a separate one based simply on chalk and see which one turns out best. That's one of the fun, weird things that I like to do. And we'll get back because we got a lot of Indiana fans on this listening in, tuning in. But when you look at Indiana's bracket, Mike, I think when you look at them as a 4 seed, probably one of the more favorable draws if you're looking at it from an Indiana perspective. He's surprised. He doesn't think so. I'm going to be interested to get your take. I think if you looked at how Indiana played back in January when they were winning 8 out of 9 games and you saw this draw, you would think we have a chance to go to the Final Four. Now they haven't been able to string together 2 wins consecutively really for the last month. So there's some concerns there. What's your take on Indiana's draw, the bracket? Kent State's obviously going to be a tough out. Yeah. But what's your take on Indiana's position right now?
Yeah, I guess I could see that. I mean, I do worry vis-a-vis the Indiana perspective about that Kent State matchup. Kent State's really good. I watched them on Saturday night in their game against Toledo, and Toledo could not stop them at all. Second half, it was a tight game. I think it was 1-point game at halftime. Can't remember which way. 1-point game. Second half, Kent State scores 58 points in a championship situation, in a lose and you're out position. 58 points, really impressive. That's going to be hard for the Hoosiers. I do like the fact that I think if you're going to play a 5, you've got Miami, you've got Duke, you've got St. Mary's, and you've got where's the 5th? Where's the other one? San Diego State. I don't think the 5s are very impressive teams generally relative to the rest of the league, rest of the field. It probably out of that group, San Diego State, Miami, probably tied for second. I would put St. Mary's at the end of it, and I'd put Duke easily at the top. So it could have been worse there. Houston, I think Houston has a terrific team. Don't get me wrong, but without Marcus Sasser, and I don't know what his situation is. I only know that he made a move that did not look good, and that he came up holding his thigh, and subsequently it's been explained to be a groin issue. I know what they looked like on Sunday. I know what they looked like on Sunday without him. And it was really, I mean, they were bereft. They had no idea what to do without him. Memphis is a fine team, but Memphis made them look bad. Yeah. So I don't know what to expect from them. So I guess it could be worse, but I think you start with that Kent State game, and of the 13s, that would definitely be the last one I'd want to play by far. I think Kent State is considerably better than the other 13s in the field.
Well, hopefully I'll get Michael Lewis on here, current coach at Ball State, because he knows all about those guys. He had a good year with Ball State.
He did. Did a great job.
20 wins, but damn, the top of that MAC was just brutal. It wasn't just Toledo. It was Akron and Toledo.
Yes.
Those teams they all won like 22 or 3 games or more.
Yeah, more. I think all
there was
those
4
won.
teams in that conference that won over 20 games.
Yeah, it's a really, really balanced league. That's why it's a great job. It's a great place to go and coach for a long time. But if your idea is I'm going to go to the MAC and I'm going to win big and then I'm going to get out of there, that's not easy. Not many do, because you can win. Like Todd Kowalczyk has had a phenomenal career there, but has never been able to get to the tournament out of Toledo. They've been good for a dozen years, and they have never been able to conquer that last game because it's so hard. Because and what's interesting about the MAC is that their good teams don't get upset in that deal. Like, their good teams are always there playing for it. It's really fascinating how that league operates. Of all the mid-major leagues, you don't see upsets in that tournament. Maybe one, somewhere along the way, but then there's 3 other just like them, and they're the ones that are playing for it on that Friday, Saturday in Cleveland.
What's the biggest? Well, obviously, Indiana has to get past the first hurdle. If they get past that, that's probably the big. I'm not saying that these other ones aren't hurdles, but I think that I agree with you. I think that could be a tougher matchup for them than their potential second round game.
Yeah, I kind of think so. I mean, I think Drake's very good, and I think Miami is a hard team to defend. And if Miami can get it going, they're very good.
Drake's the team that people don't think about. I promise you, Drake's a team that can beat Miami. Isn't Miami a little beat up?
Yeah, their center, O'Meara,
the big guy,
did his ankle. I don't know. You don't know ever until you see him out there. But he did his ankle, and it was bad enough that he did not return on Friday in their semi against Duke. I think he happened like in the first minute, because as I looked at the box, I think he's listed as having played 0 minutes, but he was out there. And so he did not return in that game. And of course, then they were eliminated. So we don't know what his status will be. That will be an interesting thing to watch. With him, they're a small team. Without him, they're a tiny team, kind of in college basketball parlance. So I think, I don't know what to expect from Indiana at this point. I know what to expect from Trace. You don't see many guys that put more into it than he does. And I felt bad for him on Saturday because I thought he put everything into it, and I didn't see a great effort, the effort that matched his level from some of the other guys. So I don't know what to expect from them. I just know he's going to give everything.
We've got to take it. Oh, sorry.
And we'll see how it goes.
We've got to take a quick break. The great Mike DeCourcy is with us from BTN and the Sporting News, along with Dustin Schutte. And, of course, we've got plenty to talk about when it comes to basketball. Sky Clark is one we'll talk about, but also the transfer portal is going on right now. We got the portal going on at the same time as the NCAA tournament. You want to talk about craziness to follow? My God, this weekend there will be things blowing up, trying to keep track of names and this and that. But we've got lots more coming up here. Brought to you by Hank's Pizza Mac, located right down on College Avenue. Stop by and give it a try, or give them a call. It's very easy to remember this number, 812-330-0000. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, here's the deal.
I forgot, Mike and I have to argue about Matt Painter's 8-minute strategy at the end of the Big Ten championship game.
Boy, they damn near got beat.
I
couldn't believe it. And I was there, and I'm walking around.
I've been watching Purdue games for over 30 years. I could believe every second of what was happening.
I could not believe that. I look up and I'm like, what? Wait, what?
I swear to God, this is true story. I don't remember the exact time or the exact score, but there was a point in the final 5 minutes. It might have been around right before the 4-minute timeout or something like that, where I said, okay, they can sit Zach for the rest of the game now. I thought that was totally over. I thought it was totally over. I thought they could rest Zach and get him ready for this week and all that. I didn't think Penn State had anything left, and yet it happened.
Yeah. I didn't understand.
That's pretty damn good for a team that played as many games as they did.
They did, yeah.
In a row.
I don't know why at a certain point I agreed with Matt Painter's strategy to sub out offense for defense with Kaufman, Wren, and Edey. But then Penn State drove to the basket and got, 37 straight points in the paint. I know they needed threes at that point, but they cut the lead by getting twos.
Yes, but that was the strategy. Don't let them make threes because because then the lead goes faster, and then you wind up behind, and that never happened. It was the right strategy.
Oh boy,
they never got there.
That's true. They got really close enough. What a guy behind me though.
There was a guy sitting right behind me, and he's just screaming about Edey every time. They ended up making friends, but like at some point, I just had to turn around and say, I had to explain to him the strategy, 2 versus 3. And he was really cool about it. But I just I couldn't take it anymore. I was just like, come on, he's doing this for a reason. And then I saw Dustin was doing the same thing on Twitter, and I was cracking up. And so I thought, this is true, Dustin. I thought that telling you that he was doing the right thing would get it out of my system, and it didn't.
I didn't disagree, but then it just got to a point where they were just carving Purdue up, and I was like, I would rather take the chances because I think there was a couple times where Purdue didn't get a rebound, and I feel like they would have got it had they had Edey in the game. I don't know. It was just, but you've seen that from Purdue down the last month. I mean, for years, but down the last month of the season, if teams put in that press.
Coffee bar, bread, pastries, all made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by, feast, market, and cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday, March 14th, man. You know, that means basketball, and we've got the soothsayer of basketball, Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network with us. Great, fun weekend up there. The Big Ten did a great job, Mike. You were part of that coverage of the Big Ten tournament, obviously, the Big Ten Network with its crew, a mass of crew and a mass of talent. Just tons of you, Dave Rebson, yourself, Ray Fell, Coach Weber, who has now joined it's so funny, and I cannot wait. It was my first opportunity for me to meet him, and it's so funny to see, and I love it. Like when Bob Knight and Gene Cady in the years after, how they are all friends and other people friends, and some people were like, how can that be? And I'm like, well, you don't get it, man. It's the competition is the competition. It's not personal. And I think fans, it's personal to fans, much more personal to fans than it is the competitors off of the floor. They're able to leave it behind where fans are not able to do so. But Coach Weber is one of those that would really, with IU fans, definitely a lot of smack because of the Eric Gordon situation back in the day. But meeting him, it was just funny because just he's you can tell he's somebody's grandfather. Just a nice guy, affable. It's just funny when you can put that the competitive stuff out of the way and actually meet the people.
Absolutely. He's just he's a delight. He's so wonderful. And he's always has been. I've known him since well before he was at at Illinois as the head coach, and he's always been wonderful. And I'm happy he had the success that he had. Championship game in 2005, did a nice job at K-State. A lovely person, and we're so lucky to have him on the team at BTN. But I think guys, I think you can hate that little part of somebody that's a Bengals fan, say, just to use an example. And you can, but think it's like some of my closest friends are Bengals people, but it's just that it's,
right.
On those Sundays you want to win, but the rest of the time, it really shouldn't be an impediment to anything, and up to and including marrying and having children with a fan of the opposite team. So I don't think that it should be unnatural for Gene Cady and Bob Knight to be, wonderful friends as they are. I think that's the way it should be. And like I said, that little part of them that is the passionate fan, you don't have to like that part of them, but I think the rest of them, they should be judged on their merits.
Absolutely. And I can say I was probably guilty of some of that as well, because you have to separate. There's just a lot of stuff that you just have to separate. And sometimes you have to learn to do that, even in situations that are can get heated, we're competitive. And so it's like, someone said this about, I overheard a conversation. Was in someone repeating the official that was involved in one of the frantics, which I'm going to give Dustin credit for, but I get a little piece of credit on that because I said Fran's antics, and he comes right back with frantics.
If there's a pun to be made, I'm going to make it.
We have to, first of all, we have to get that coined, Dustin. We have to coin that and get it out, because that's too good.
Yeah, you got to get in touch with Rothstein. He makes all those T-shirts.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
and try to work with him on that. That would be great.
All right, there's that picture. Text, Dustin. I'm gonna send him a text. You're don't worry, your credit's coming.
All right, there we go. And then I was gonna say
we were talking about they had a conversation with the official. If you remember when Fran walked up to the official and just stood there 4 feet away.
Absolutely. How could you forget?
This person was talking to the official. He said, "Well, what was going on?" He goes, he came out, he walks towards me, and he took 2 steps. He goes, I took 2 steps. He goes, I'm waiting. If he says another word, takes another step, he is gone. And he goes, he just stood there and didn't do anything, turned around and walked back to the huddle. It was just funny.
I don't know
if I say he is the nicest guy off the court as well, which reminds me of our old high school basketball coach, Joe Hinton. He was the same way. This guy was about to have a heart attack on the court, but when he's off the court, he was like, "Hey, how are you?" It was just it's night and day. No pun intended.
I don't know if we talked about this at the time, but Fran didn't even invent that. John Chaney, the great John Chaney, the late great John Chaney, Hall of Famer. I was at a game where he stood outside his huddle and stared at the ref on the opposite hash line for the entire TV timeout, the entire one. And he just stood there like this, on hands on his hips, one side of his eye, of his head leaned forward so he can give him one eye, the evil eye. And did it for the entire TV timeout. So Fran was a little closer. That was his innovation, I guess. But the stare down is not a new tactic.
One of the funniest things I've seen, this is not college basketball related. This was a high school girls basketball game when I was an intern in college doing sports, high school sports. And the head girls basketball coach for the team I was covering kept going out of his box to yell. The officiating for this particular game was terrible. He kept going out of the coach's box. And the official said, "Get inside your box or I'm going to tee you up." He was on the left side of me. He took his left foot, put it right on the edge of that coach's box and then stuck his right leg over and was like dangling it over the line to harass the official. And he did tee him up. It was probably, I mean, everybody in that arena, we didn't care about the score, nothing. It was the funniest thing I think I've ever seen. But it's just one of those things where I think you get to a point where you just, when you're a coach, you have nothing else to, whether it's say to the official, you're not getting your point across. So you just kind of have a little bit of fun with it. Like, I think Fran was generally PO'd, and I'm sure John Chaney was generally PO'd. But it's always, those antics are always, we can rip them on Twitter, but they're always kind of funny to me.
I got one more story along these lines, similar to yours. When I covered high school basketball in the early 80s in Pennsylvania, the state had a rule. Coaches were not allowed to stand up on the bench. You had to sit the entire game. Now, there was a guy at a high school called Elwood City.
I think that's still the same for assistant coaches.
It may be, but in that point, head coaches could not stand up for any reason other than maybe if a player was injured, you could come off, but you couldn't stand up. And so Doug Tamaro, who is the sports information director at Arizona State, I don't know if you guys have ever, nicest guy in the world. He played for Elwood City against Sean Miller from Indiana, from now of Xavier. And his high school coach, guy named Al Campman, was a nut, like a basketball, like like we're talking about, like in that environment, just wild. Outside, normal human being. Inside, while the game's going on, just over the edge, let's say. So he had to have a student manager who would sit behind him and hold on to his belt the entire time. True story. He would have the kid would sit there with his hands on the guy's belt, and that was his job as the student manager. Is that the best?
That's fantastic.
I love it. Let's see. Get back to Chris Beard goes to Ole Miss. But
thank you, Mike. Mike is shaking his head no. Thank you, because that was. And by the way, let me just point to this, and I'll let Mike take this over. I don't know how to properly say this, so I'm going to apologize if it comes off poorly. Ole Miss basically in their statement said, we don't care, we just want to win. Like, that's how that statement read to me when they released it. So I guess give them credit for not trying to hide behind anything other than they just want to win basketball games.
The hire says that alone.
Yeah,
they don't need a statement. That was the statement.
I know, but sometimes schools will put
then they double down.
Yeah.
Yes.
But at least they didn't try to hide and say, we think he's a great person off the court. Like, they just said he's going to build a winning culture here. And it's okay. Well, at least you didn't try to.
You know what? That's probably what the fan base have said. That's probably what their donors are telling them.
Here's the thing.
I'm not saying it makes it right.
Here's the thing about Ole Miss. They hired Rob Evans in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. Great person. Won games, let him get away. He was replaced by Rod Barnes. Great person, won games, they fired him. They later on hired Andy Kennedy. Great person, won games, they fired him because they think they're like Kentucky, and they're not. I mean, they have no history of being their history. The Ole Miss history in basketball is how many teams are in the league? 10. Okay, they're 9th. How many teams are in the league now? 14. Okay, they're 13th. That's what their history is. Yeah. And they think they're better than that. So when someone like Evans or Barnes or Kennedy supersedes that history, but it doesn't take them to like, okay, how many teams is the SEC getting? 7. Okay, we're 8th. Or 6, we're 7th. That's not good enough. They think that they're better than that. Well, they're clearly not better than that because they did this. I'm not saying he should never coach again. I can't say that. Because we don't know enough to know that. But we know enough to know that 3 months is not the time period. It might even be less than 3 months. That's not the time period in which he demonstrates that he's fit to coach again. That there's just no. But Ole Miss decided that the only thing that mattered was being 7th instead of 8th, and I couldn't have less respect for that decision.
Well, also now you got to think of the moms that will be sending or not sending their sons to play for Chris Beard.
Well, Well, I think they decided that they would probably get through enough of that that they could win. We'll see how it goes. He's on the floor. He's a very capable coach. I wasn't a fan of the way he conducted himself even before this, and then this was this circumstance. However, it went down, just not acceptable, in my opinion, for a sitting Division I head men's basketball coach. Not now. Texas made the right move. Ole Miss did not.
And there's certainly been no drop off at Texas since his departure.
I thought Rodney Terry did a really wonderful job, Jim and Dustin, and
they may have gotten better.
We at Sporting News named him our National Coach of the Year. I thought Rodney did a really good job Rodney Terry did a really good job in a very difficult circumstance. We were proud to have him as our Coach of the Year, and then he made us look good, so to speak, by going out and winning the Big 12 tournament with a decisive victory over Kansas on Saturday.
All right, Miami and Drake, what's your pick?
I picked Drake.
Oh, all right.
Well, Miami's wounded. I wouldn't disagree with
true.
that.
That's my 1-5-12 upset. If Oral Roberts had been matched against any other 5 than Duke, I would have jumped on that pick. I mean, I might even, I'm not, you guys know I'm not a bettor. I might even have created an account to put money on that one.
Indiana and Kent State.
Yeah, I have IU advancing, and I have them going on to the Sweet 16, but I know it's going to be a tough one.
I was going to ask, Mike, which 1 seed do you think is going to be eliminated first?
On my bracket, I have Purdue being the 1 seed eliminated first as a Sweet 16 victim of Duke. That's, of course, as I mentioned, pending Marcus Sasser. If Marcus Sasser is Marcus Sasser, they beat Auburn by a dozen. If Marcus Sasser is not Marcus Sasser, or Marcus Sasser has the same view of the game as me, more or less, I think Auburn could beat them.
And then this might be a dumb pick. I clearly am going to have Kennesaw State in the Final Four. But they play Xavier. Here's the thing that's interesting to me. Now I know you're not a bettor, and I'm not asking you to pick this game, but I think I saw that the over/under was 151. I feel like both teams can score a lot of points in that.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
I would hammer the over. I mean, but I feel like both teams can hit the 3 ball. I think that might be one of the. I don't know that Kennesaw State's actually going to win that game, and probably nobody listening cares about Kennesaw State basketball. But I feel like that might be one of the more entertaining 3-14 games, or one of the potential upsets, one of the bigger upsets, because of the way Kennesaw State can shoot.
Yeah, one of the things I will say is that Xavier has worked really hard to become a better defensive team. They were not on Saturday. Maybe they were spent. I don't know, because they had to work hard to get to that game. They were not good at all on Saturday night against Marquette. But in general, they have worked pretty hard at becoming a better defensive team. And IU fans will remember Jerome Hunter. Jerome is now a starting power forward for them because their regular power forward, Zach Fremantle, is out for the year with, I think, a foot. That's
a big loss for them, too.
It is, but it'd be a huge loss if they didn't have Jerome. Jerome is a starting quality player, and actually, what they lost on offense and rebounding was Zach, who was a really good offensive player, very versatile. He's a 15, 16, 17 point a game guy, and an 8 rebound guy. They lost a lot on the rebounding, some of what they lost in losing Zach, Jerome has empowered their defense. They're a better defensive team with Jerome getting those minutes than they were with Zach. Zach's not a great defender. Great at the other things, not as great at that. Jerome, great on D, does his role on offense. They lose a little something at that end with Jerome, but so that's my one concern about that. But I could also see Xavier going in and scoring 80,
right?
And what? So the number was what, 150?
151, I think.
Yeah, so they'd have to go 80 to 71, or that might be tough. But I don't know that I'd put a truckload on it, but you might be able to pick up a dime or two.
Quick last question from Dabney. He wanted to know, does the committee chair, who's Chris Reynolds, former IU player, by the way, have the ability to overrule the final bracket, or I guess overrule earlier when you were talking about this or team or that? I mean, that's just something I don't imagine happening.
No, they don't, but they run the meeting. So if there's something that they think is wrong, like if you're in charge of the meeting and you say Kansas being in the West is wrong, you can, and you're the chair, you can keep saying, hey guys, I want to revisit this. I want to revisit this, ladies and gentlemen, because there are women on the bracket. I want to using guys as the general term, but ladies and gentlemen, I want to revisit this. I want to look at this again, and you can keep coming back to it till they finally get worn down and say, I want to have a cup of coffee. Okay, we'll do whatever you say, that kind of thing. But I think that's the role more than it is I say this goes.
I do have a question for Mike, and I know, John, we got to take a break, so I apologize, but I want to get this in. Do the number 1 seeds get to pick the region based on, or does the committee select it for them?
Just the first one, right?
Yeah, it's generally the first one, and then it does somewhat go later on. But like if you're the second team, you're probably going to want your geography to be intact. Like Alabama's going to pick obviously Louisville. There's no doubt about that. Houston. I think I wonder about what Houston wanted. It is a big, significant travel difference, but they're going to be unbelievably unpopular among the neutral ticket holders on Thursday. I think whatever day it is, they're going to be when we get to KC, if they're there. The neutral ticket holders, the ones that are neutral now that thought they were going to have KU tickets, they're going to be unbelievably unpopular there. I think if I were them, I'd rather take my chance of going to Vegas and there being less passion in the building than there will be. There won't be anybody that's a Houston fan now other than the Cougars people who make the trip.
Because, well, we know Indiana fans will travel to Kansas because they had probably the biggest presence by a traveling team ever this year at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. So they're already predisposed. But the people who live in KC and bought those tickets because they thought that KU was, based on, it wasn't like a speculative thing. They were one of the 2-3 best teams in the country all year. So they should have been there. And if I were a buyer, I'd be angry because it was not a supportable decision, a defensible decision. Mike DeCourcy, make sure you keep following him. He's got his brackets out. He's got, what don't you do? Shine shoes. You got everything else going on. BTN on the studio on Sunday nights is the same schedule now that the tournament has started with on Sunday nights, or I'm sure that changes a little bit.
Yeah, the tournament edition is beyond. I will not be involved in. Generally, those that's Ray.
That's not acceptable.
There you go. That's the people who are based in Chicago. They'll have that group in there, and they'll do a great job. They're phenomenal, and the schedule on Beyond is always flexible relative to the tournament. So I'm sure that the shows will begin when the tournament games end because you have to get all the games in. So I'm sure that that's how that will work on Sunday nights. But they'll be there every night during the tournament, every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday through the first two weekends with the tournament Beyond shows, and also during the week as well. Big Ten Live at noon Eastern. Dave Revson's terrific show. They'll be talking tournament and women's tournament. Hey, let's not forget that. I mean, a great women's tournament coming up with IU right
IU
there.
Number 1. Great shot to wind up in Dallas.
Absolutely.
Final Four, hopefully.
Yeah. So good luck to the Hoosier women. They have had a fabulous year so far and opportunity to make it even more so.
Who goes further, IU or Purdue?
I think they both go equally far is my stance.
Boy, what an easy answer that was.
I'm parting neutral.
The bracket says what it says, man.
I believe you. Mike DeCourcy, the great one. The bracket analyst, Mike DeCourcy, and senior writer from BTN and the Sporting News and BTN studio analyst. Look forward to it next week. We'll catch up and see who did what. Can't wait for the upsets.
Have fun, guys. It's always a pleasure.
Mike DeCourcy, we love him. Can't do without him. It's always a blast. We've got to take a break before John cracks my arms in two. We'll be right back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore Honda.
My bad, John. I wanted to know that answer for sure.
No, you're good. That was a good question. This will likely be a short segment, but we know that. We always do that this time of every week. I hate the Big Game Boomer Twitter account. I understand he's like his brand is to be hated, but I don't get how somebody could be like that.
All right, he back.
He back.
You got any other questions in here? we should have tried to. We should have got Mike's champion.
I don't know if he would have shared it. Would he have?
Well, he might have.
I bet he's taking Kansas.
It's hard to pick against Alabama. I did my first bracket thing.
It's so hard for me.
Well, no, I mean, from a strictly basketball perspective, not who I want to win.
Oh yeah, no, I know
who I'm rooting for.
It wasn't hard for me to pick Arizona to beat them in the Elite Eight.
Oh, I did. So I went back. I got to the Final Four, and I had my teams picked, and I'm like, I don't like any of this, so I changed it all.
I have not done my picks yet.
I'm going to go in, and I need to have a Kennesaw State bracket.
Oh,
have the Owls winning it all. It's fun. Let's have some fun with it. Why not?
It is fun.
Oh, you can do whatever you want.
I will do whatever I want. Damn Skippy.
Jim, when you gave a death sentence to Indiana when you said, I'm looking forward to the upsets as Mike DeCourcy was leaving. So next week we'll talk about Indiana losing to Kent State.
That's true. Way to go.
Say that again.
Nothing. Here we go.
Decision fatigue. You pick your plan and pick up at BB's Market with no extra charge. So leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Tuesday, March 14th. It's time for basketball, peoples. As a matter of fact, the first four in plays today, I believe. Daryl says there needs to be more thought behind travel in the tourney. Sending Nevada and Arizona State to Dayton, for example, is just stupid. Well, Dayton is just the site of every year of that spot. I don't know if they need to move that to a different location.
You know what I wish they would do, and they're not going to do this because they're going to continue to move it around. I wish that they would have set sites, at least for the first round of the tournament.
I've got an idea. Forget the stupid-ass play-in game. Either
I like the play-in game.
Expand it or don't expand it. You got conference tournaments. First of all, you've got the regular season, then you've got conference tournaments. If you have not been able to determine whether a team deserves to get in or not, I don't know what to tell you.
See, this is an interesting argument.
Just expand it to 68. I mean,
what is expanded to 68? That's you can't do anything else. This is the only way they can do that. So this is the interesting thing that I've proposed in the past. I feel like the only play-in games should be the bubble teams, right? Like my thought is if you're a bubble team, you should have to play one game to get into the field of 64. However, it has been explained to me that the thought process behind it is those 16 seeds don't really have much of a shot to win. So give them a chance to win a tournament game, and it might help their program. And I actually kind of like it. So I don't know where I stand on this. I used to think if you're a bubble team, you have to play the play-in game. The 16 seed should be in the tournament. But then somebody countered and said, well, those 16 seeds have a very slim chance of winning a tournament game. If they play the play-in game, then they get a win. Maybe it helps their program. I don't know what kind of money goes to those.
Are you going to bring all the trophies for them so they all get one?
I don't. Well, I mean, I don't care about that aspect, but it's just I don't know. It's a fun thing. Why not?
Hey, got weather happening up in Albany, big time. Chef JD today and tomorrow. Then he's taking the rest of the week off. You better make some good food before he does. After the tournament, a lot of players will be in the portal. Steve thinks.
See,
Kevin says he won't be surprised if Beard is Mississippi State in the top mix of the. I doubt that.
Well, he'll be at Ole Miss, so it'd be hard for him to have
We got lots
State
more to
there.
get to. Chronic Hoosier is going to come up next. Join us. We have got basketball to talk about because that's what's happening, babe. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio brought to you by the Ugly Grouper for those of you down in and around the Anna Maria Island area. If not, when you're visiting or traveling or on vacation, the greatest restaurant on the island, the Ugly Grouper. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a
getting the win increases the money you get and money to your conference. That's what I thought the case was. So that helps those conferences.
Man, I'm so far behind. There are so many comments.
It's because we had a great discussion with Mike DeCourcy.
Well, I know. I'm just saying I was so behind him.
Do you hear us, Chronic Hoosier?
I can. Can you guys hear me?
You betcha, brother. How are you, sir?
It's a good week when you got a working server at work. Sorry, I ghosted on you guys last week. I set a personal record for having 3 simultaneous tech support phone calls going on concurrently. And I'd never like to live that life again.
Understandable.
Let's see here. Oh, I'm just sitting here reading comments.
Oh, John, his wife's from Kennesaw. She's rooting them on as well as the Hoosiers. How about that? Go Owls. The only thing that pisses me off is I bought season tickets for 4 years, and they were god-awful. And then the year I move away, unbelievable season. Unbelievable. Packed house not every
See,
game,
it was the opposite for me. Whenever I went to WKU for college, Indiana was garbage, so I didn't have to worry about paying attention to them.
Yeah, you got lucky there. I was like, I supported this team. I should get free tickets, but I wasn't going to drive 5 hours for every game.
There's a good question. What is the thing to eat in Albany, New York? Oh,
Did somebody at me? What was the question that had my name on it? Where did that go? Was that a really long time ago? If it is, I apologize for missing it.
It's a layup. You're in upstate New York. It's wings.
I've never been to upstate New York. Is Albany considered upstate? Is anything above New York City considered upstate?
To this Midwesterner, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you. Me too. But then I see, Syracuse.
Michael, if you're assuming I'm in college by asking if it's spring break for me, I have some news for you.
Easy.
Oh, that wasn't mean.
No,
that wasn't.
I know. I'm just.
It's just fun to sometimes people don't realize other people's ages, which is interesting. I don't mean that in a bad way at all.
I got 2 kids on spring break. My wife's off because the kids are on spring break. Therefore, I am on spring break, even though I'm working like nothing's happening. But it's still spring break technically.
All right, here we go, guys.
Growlers. Metalworks Brewing Company has an updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste what Dr. Hops is brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday of tournament week. Brought to you by Andy Moore Honda. Bloomington. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. Get the best in new and used vehicles, greatest selection, and the best deals. Join us now by Chronic Hoosier. How are you, sir?
I am so glad to be back. It's the absolute best week of the year, and I am absolutely here for it.
You know, it's not warm enough, but you look outside and it looks beautiful. It looks like tournament time. So we'll pretend that it's warmer out there, especially with the fact that I know that I'm getting on a plane tomorrow to go to a place that is reportedly getting between 6 and 16 inches of snow.
What are you going to do? But if there's any week of the year where you can go completely dark for 4 consecutive days and never have to step foot outside, it's this week. Now, unfortunately, you're going to have to travel to the gym and whatnot. But, you know, this is the vasectomy week when you're just going to plant yourself on a couch and do nothing but watch college basketball nonstop for 4 straight days. And it's seriously the best thing in the world.
Oh, if I had a job where I could take off and just do nothing for 4 days, it would be Thursday through Sunday night. There's just no question about it. And I miss not getting to see a lot of the games, but nobody gets to see all the games. There's so damn many of them. They're hard to keep up with even when they're on, especially early on in the early going. My God, there's 32 games going, or there's 16 on each day. But this tournament, there is, first of all, I don't know if you can consider anything an upset in this tournament almost. Yes, there are, but what we've seen, Chronic, we have seen virtually every team, no matter how good, get beat by someone. Look at Purdue. All right, Purdue is a number 1 seed. They got beat at home by a team that didn't even make the tournament. Probably should have made it, but that's another argument, but they didn't. And they're a number 1 seed. That just shows you how difficult and crazy this is. But Indiana is in they have a tough draw, man. Kent State is a really good team. I talked earlier about, Michael Lewis coaching at Ball State, having to deal with them. He won 20 games in that league, but there was 3 teams above them. The MAC was tough this year.
Yeah, no doubt. This is going to be probably one of the most chaotic NCAA tournaments in recent history, if not in tournament history, quite frankly. But that's what makes March so magic, quite honestly. On any given day, anybody can knock anybody off when given the chance in this. And this is one of those things where as an Indiana fan, you start seeing a lot of the national prognosticators picking Indiana as their sexy dark horse 4 seed to make it to the Final Four. And, personally, for me, I don't care about the Final Four at this point. I don't even care about Sunday at this point. Just survive Friday night and do it 1 game at a time. It sounds so simplistic, but that's truly what this tournament is, what every tournament is. But you get the sense this tournament especially is going to be just get through your next round. Don't focus on anything down the road because you let up for a second. And like you said, whether you're Purdue, Indiana, I don't care who you are in this tournament right now. Nobody's safe. There is no clear-cut favorite, I feel like, to win it. And I think that's going to make for an awesome product. I think it's going to also make for a very unexpected and perhaps a frustrating tournament product as well. So if you're Indiana, you just got to focus on Kent State and absolutely nothing else. Short memories at this point. You know who you are, you know what you want to do. You just got to go out there and do it and pray to God that you do it better than the other team, because this is it. We've reached the point where there's one game worth of runway left for every player who's indicated he's taken off this year, including those who probably haven't, like Jalen Hood-Schifino. And, this is going to be a completely different basketball team after this season. Who knows what the roster is going to look like, but you're only given one more game. That's the only thing guaranteed in front of you. So you absolutely have to make the most of it, leave it all out on the floor, and just pray that when the whistle blows, you're moving on, because you do that 6 times and you're putting a banner up. You do that 2 times and you're in the Sweet 16. 4 times you've made the Final Four, which those are all very, very lofty goals for Indiana. Ultimately, the ultimate goals at stake. But at the end of the day, it's just one game. Just win one game and then keep repeating that over and over. But I wouldn't even focus on the repeat part right now, because Indiana's going to have more in their hands full with Kent State. And, I think as we saw in the Big Ten tournament, this is a team that very easily could make a run. This is a team that could very easily bow out in the first round. I think a lot of it's going to hinge on, some of the simplest parts of the game. Can Indiana keep the ball in front of them and stay out of rotation and stop leaving 3-point shooters open? Because at this point, I think that the playbook against Indiana is probably in bold-face print for most opposing coaches on what they're going to need to do to beat the Hoosiers.
I'm getting a little nervous as to how much we've been talking about the wildness of this March Madness tournament. It makes me feel like now it's going to be just straight chalk, or as close to chalk as we've had, because everybody talks about how crazy they expect this March Madness to be because of how crazy the college basketball season was. But to your point, Chronic, and one thing I know we talk about one game at a time, but it's hard for me because you look at the way this Indiana team has played, and you go back to January, and I've said this a couple times on this show, so I apologize for sounding like a broken record to our listeners and people watching, but I feel like in January, if you would have taken the way Indiana was playing in January, you look at this draw, you say, we've got a great chance to go to the Final Four. The last month, they have not been able to string together 2 games to save their life. They have not played well consecutively since early February, maybe. And that's what I feel like there's a chance that Indiana looks locked in, ready to go, plays well against Kent State. And you think this is the Indiana team that can get back to the Final Four, make a deep run, and then follows it up with a Sunday performance that leaves you very disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, since with the exception of that regular season ending overtime win against Michigan, followed up by the tournament win against Maryland, that's the first time the Hoosiers have been able to string consecutive wins together since early February, when they did the Purdue-Rutgers-Michigan streak. Yeah. So it's certainly been a lot of up and down for this team, in a lot of whiplash fashion, quite honestly. And I think that's the thing that gives me pause heading into tournament play, especially after the highs of like the Purdue win on the road, to completely lay an egg against Iowa. This team has been pretty consistently inconsistent throughout the better part of the season. You take away that stretch after they had the players only meeting following Penn State, and they went on that tear in back half of January into early February. They at least showed you that they can focus enough to get back on track, and they were wildly off track at that point. What we've seen probably is some sort of a regression to the mean since then, with losses to Northwestern, Michigan State, Iowa, and most recently Penn State. Let's not forget, a lot of those have not been close for most of the time. So for a team that's as capable as Indiana, I've said it, like you mentioned, throughout the season, I don't want to be a broken record. They have demonstrated every bit as much grit as they have flaws. And none of that changes come tournament play. So you are who you are. You are what your record says you are. And, the record says Indiana can be a little bit inconsistent at times. So, realistically, what's the chances that now all of a sudden they put together their first 6-game streak of the season, at least since they got out of the cupcake portion of the season? Who knows? But again, none of that matters. Look at North Carolina. I think they are the perfect example. What they were able to accomplish last year. You look back at it and say, well, clearly that was a blip. That's not truly who this team was. It doesn't matter. they did it. They were able to
Yeah.
put together that run. And if you can cohese together and get your stuff going and get everybody on the same page, most importantly, you got 3 weekends. That's it. You got 3 weekend tournaments basically in front of you. And if the guys can get on a roll, the sky's the limit for them. So it's going to be fascinating to see, because quite honestly, you've got one of the greatest Indiana players in program history who's really looking to cement his legacy. And Trace has made no bones about why he came back and what the goal was. And then you pair that with a guy like Hood Schifino, who's clearly playing for a draft position right now. I think Indiana's got a fascinating matchup. I likened it last week after the Maryland win to an NBA Jam. You know, when you've got a big like that and a guard like that, if you can get them turned all the way up together, look out, it can be really dangerous. But as we saw against Penn State, it takes 5 guys to defend the floor, and they're going to have to figure out a way to get everybody involved, because quite frankly, what we saw in the United Center on Saturday is not going to cut it come tournament play on the defensive side.
Looking forward to it, man. How are you going to be spending the tournament?
Like I do most weeks, I'm going to be working with one eye on the television and one eye on the bottom line, trying to stack some dubs on both columns, hopefully. But no, that's as we were talking in the break. Everybody's on spring break. My wife and kids are on spring break. I'm certainly socializing like I'm on spring break in the evenings, but unfortunately, come 6:30, I'm very much back in the working world. So, fortunately, I can do a little bit of both at work, watch some games as well as get the job done. But we'll be doing that during the day, and then, like most people, I'm going to be glued to a couch as soon as I get home, and staying up way too late watching way too many good basketball games. Hopefully.
Well, brother, we appreciate you, and I hope I'm able to get to Albany, New York, when you don't get snowed out tomorrow.
Yeah, it's funny. The meteorologists are all calling this another snowpocalypse, and some of the upstate friends of mine are like, yeah, what's it going to do? It's going to stink for a day, and then they're going to make it work, and then it's going to rain and be slush and whatever. You just don't drive that day. So I think a lot of this is going to be the timing of a lot of folks' travels as far as when they arrive and when they got to be on the road, and just give the crews enough time to get everything straightened out. But I wish you a safe trip out there, and hopefully you keep traveling for the next weekend.
Absolutely, brother. We appreciate you. Look forward to talking next week.
Thanks for having me on, guys. We'll see you then.
The great Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Speed Radio. We've got more coming up. We're back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Let's see.
Doug and Becky Bradley said I should join them for a road trip up to Albany since Jim won't buy us tickets. I agree.
Just a heads up, that was our last commercial break, so this will be a pretty long last segment.
Oh, well, good. I didn't know. I'm glad I got us caught up.
It's no biggie. Because usually you bring in Chronic because we've already gone super long, and then we've missed a break, and then we have to take 2, but that wasn't the case today. So.
Ooh, yeah.
Old Patino's rumored for that job too, that Texas Tech job.
Man, I don't. Somebody better hire him. Whoever. If you don't hire him, somebody else is going to.
Yep.
This will be whatever job he takes in terms of big name jobs. This will probably be his last stop.
Well, you think? He's 106 years old. I mean, literally, he's like 70.
I can't believe he's still coaching, but
Ricky P, one of the last remaining of the, I guess, older generation of coaches. Him, Tom Izzo, Bill Self.
Yeah, I don't know about Self.
Not really the same generation, I guess, but how old is Bill Self?
That's a good question.
Bill Self, he is
William
60.
Self. He's only 60?
He's only 60.
Yeah, he's not that old. That's what I'm saying, man. I don't know what y'all talking about.
How old is Tom Izzo?
But it seems like he was at Illinois like 70 years ago.
Izzo is 68. Patino's is Patino in his 70s?
He's got to be. He's been around longer than all of them.
Patino is 70.
Wow, only 2 years older than Tom Izzo. How about that?
Leonard Hamilton's also a really old one.
Yeah, Leonard Hamilton's been at Florida State since what, 2002?
He's 74.
Whew.
He's probably on his last legs, considering how bad Florida State is anyway.
Yeah.
I bet next year, unless he retires this year, might be next year. Especially if they're really bad again.
So I might have to jump out at some point. So I might wave my hand and do some sort of motion since we don't have another commercial break.
Yeah, let us just say, make your exit gracefully. Don't just disappear on us.
Oh, no, I'm going to. Oh, great.
All right, here we go.
With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by K-Bello. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Tournament week, baby. NCAA basketball tournament starts tonight with the first 4 in Dayton. Indiana plays on Friday night late at 9:55. That will give everyone in plenty of time to shovel all the snow off out of Albany, because yesterday Albany County Executive Dan McCoy declared a state of emergency for the county due to the impending winter storm. It went into effect 8 p.m. last night. No, on Monday, actually.
Well, that would be last night.
Oh, okay. Yes. Perfect.
Is it ever not snowing in New York?
80,000 people if they're already without power.
Jeez.
So can't wait. Love having tournaments up north.
Yeah.
Hint, Minnesota, Minneapolis. Now, this is worse because it's on the lake side.
Wait, Albany, you talking about?
I don't know if they get the lake effect snow, but they probably do. I mean,
I would
imagine.
So.
I'm not a meteorologist, obviously.
Well, but that's got to be part of the reason why they always get so much damn snow up there.
Oh,
right?
yeah. It just carries off there and it just hammers them. But, whew. I'm just trying to catch it up with it real quick. The flying in, though, is probably not going to be a problem. They just keep the runways plowed and
let me tell you, I've never been in college. I'm not a big flyer anyway. I'm not huge on it. I can get through it. Excuse me, but anyway, I went on a study abroad trip in college, and one of our flights coming home, we stopped in New York, and there was a terrible winter storm, and they came out and they sprayed the plane down with like some sort of like antifreeze or something that keeps the plane from getting too cold and it just shutting down. That was the most terrifying 2 hours or however long the flight was. Seemed like an eternity. But when you go through there and hear what they're doing and why they're doing it, sets a little bit of panic in you. I didn't realize that was a thing until I was in college.
Well, I'll tell you what's a thing. A thing is, it says by the time it's all said and done, expect 1 foot to 16 inches of snow along the Hudson River from Glen Falls, Albany, and Point South.
Nope.
The Mohawk Valley will likely see 16 to 20 inches. 2 feet or more could fall in part of the Catskills. Nobody puts baby in the corner. But they can sure snow plow her out, I guess.
I tell you what, that just sounds miserable, especially this time of year.
Well, it's much worse
and other parts of that. Dustin Schutte, my friend, we'll get you back to do it again tomorrow. Looking forward to it. And you have yourself a good rest of your day.
Enjoy the first round of games tonight, everybody.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, Dustin's just taking off, and we'll talk to him tomorrow.
See you, everybody.
You got to kick him out.
Let's go. I don't know if you want to do this, but I don't want to say you fill out the entire thing, but what if I went through each region, Jim, and asked who you thought would come out of it?
Oh, you can do that. That does. I'm looking at this snow, man.
Are you terrified?
Crazy. No, because like I said, the airports, they'll keep the runways plowed. All they just keep plowing them, man. And all you got to do is land. Just stay on the runway and you're good. And then hopefully you can get to where you're staying. And yeah, that could be a problem though. That could be the problem, getting from the airport to, and a couple people have asked, leaving tomorrow after the show. So we'll be doing the show from New York Thursday and Friday.
There we go.
So looking forward to that. But there's so many comments. I was trying to hit up any questions, but I have to do that. But yeah, pull that up. Let's do that.
Yeah. So how would you want me to go through each matchup, or do you want me?
You can do whatever you want, man.
First round matchups, or do you want to just say who's coming out? How do we want to?
Just throw them at me.
Well, here we go. We'll just start off with the South region. Obviously, we've got number 1 Alabama playing against one of the play-in teams. You got Maryland playing West Virginia in the 8-9 game.
Just pull up the good games.
Well, that is a good game. You don't think the 8-9 games are good games?
Oh yeah, but the first one wasn't.
Okay. Here's one of the 5-12s, San Diego State against College of Charleston. That is actually the lone 12-5 matchup that I took the 12 for. Other games, Virginia Furman, Creighton, NC State, Baylor, UC.
There's a game right there. Creighton, NC State. That should be a good game.
Oh yeah, that's a 6 versus 11. NC State, a team that some people don't really think should have been in the tournament, and they clearly weren't even in the last 4 in. So that means they were better than most people thought they would be, at least in the committee's eyes. So yeah, that could be a really good one. Like I said earlier, Baylor, UC Santa Barbara, Missouri versus Utah State. I like Utah State to get that upset. And then Arizona versus Princeton. So I don't know if you've got your bracket in front of you, but who do you like to come out of the South?
Arizona.
It's
just hard to pick against them. They're just really, really good unless something changes. They're not. I'm not saying they're not unbeatable. No one's unbeatable. But if I had to bet money on it, it would be Arizona without question.
Yeah, that's who I've got as well. I've got Arizona taking down, I believe it's Alabama in the Elite Eight.
You've got who taking Alabama down?
Arizona to go to the Final Four from that group.
Oh, yeah. That would be a different kind of game, man. Alabama gets up and down the floor. Arizona is just huge with really good guards, but that would be something.
Let's move on down to the East. Purdue's region taking on, obviously, a 16 seed. The 8-9 game in that, Memphis versus Dusty Mays, Florida Atlantic. Yeah,
who is
Duke. Do what?
Who against Dusty May?
Memphis in the 8-9 game.
Oh my gosh. Ooh. That's going to be a tough matchup, and I wish Dusty May well. You know what? Let's pick the Owls in the upset.
That's right. I've got that as well. Next up, Duke and Oral Roberts in the 5-12 matchup.
Duke
versus
Duke just won the tournament, the ACC tournament. They're on a roll.
Yeah,
they were on the freaking bubble 3 weeks ago.
I know.
Bubble. And they just jumped in and have played really, really well. They won the ACC conference tournament. So they're on a roll, and they're playing well at tournament time.
I have Duke making it to the Elite Eight, knocking off Purdue in the Sweet 16. I just don't. I think with the way Duke is playing and the talent that they have that hasn't really been fully realized up until the late part of the season, I think they're going to prove to be too much for Purdue if that matchup, comes to fruition. All right. Also, Tennessee versus Louisiana in the 4-13. Number 6 Kentucky versus number 11 Providence. A little fun story about that game. They'll be facing a former player who transferred out to Providence, Bryce Hopkins. That's one of the storylines of that game. So, and Bryce Hopkins has had some choice words about John Calipari this season. So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to perform well against Kentucky. Also, number 3, Kansas State, Montana State, Michigan State taking on USC, and Marquette taking on Vermont. Thoughts on who might come out of the East region, Jim?
Who's the number 1 seed in the East?
Purdue.
Who's the number 2 seed?
Marquette.
I'm not looking. I don't see I don't have a bracket if I'm looking at other things, but
no, you're good. Yeah, but it's, Marquette's the 2.
Marquette
Kansas
is
State.
playing really good. Shaka Smart has them playing extraordinarily well. I would not bet against Marquette. Again, not that there's no team that's unbeatable, but they're playing really well. They beat I know that Xavier's without Zach Fremantle, but they just killed them the other night in the
Big East.
Big East tournament. I mean, man, they look good.
You and I in agreement again, because I have Marquette coming out of the East region into the Final Four. So moving over to the other side of the bracket, let's do the West region. We'll save Indiana's region for the end, the Midwest. So heading to the West region, that's Kansas's region, taking on Howard. That is the home of or the school of Gus Johnson, for those of you who may not know that. The 8-9 game, Arkansas taking on Illinois. The 5-12, St. Mary's taking on VCU. UConn taking on Rick Pitino's Iona Gales. That is the 13th seed that I did not want Indiana to get, and I'm very glad they didn't. Number 6, TCU taking on the winner of Arizona State and Nevada. Gonzaga taking on Grand Canyon. Northwestern taking on Boise State. And UCLA faces UNC Asheville. Anything that stood out to you there, Jimbo?
Who's the number 1 in that one?
That is Kansas.
Yeah, man, it's hard to pick against Kansas. Bill Self back on the sidelines after being hospitalized.
Yeah.
They were going to be the number 1 overall seed. They just ran into a little issue at the end of but they're really good. They're really good and they're coached really well. They have veterans. They have solid players at all the positions. And they were my pick to win it all before Bill Self had his issue. Every time, when you have an interruption with something, a flow, man, you can't always get that same flow back. And I'm not saying that they're not, but that happens a lot. UCLA is really good.
Yeah. UCLA also missing not one of their starters, but their 6th man. I think he's out for the rest of the season. Jalen Wilson is his name, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, this is the 2nd season in a row that UCLA has been hamstrung by the loss of a good player, and they still have been extraordinarily successful. Mercy. That's going to be a slugfest. I hate picking that.
And I ended up, while you're thinking about it, this may seem like a not very common pick, and many people might not like it, but I have Gonzaga, the 3 seed, coming out of this one, because this is the year that Gonzaga doesn't have any pressure on them. They still have their guy, Drew Timme, or Tim. I don't even know how the hell you say his name.
Timmy.
But I think with this little to no pressure, Gonzaga is going to find a way to get out of this region. Will it happen? Who knows? Probably not, but that's what I'm going with.
I had the same exact opinion just because of that. for the last few years, all you heard, it's Gonzaga, Gonzaga. Well, they don't play. They play people in the preseason, but then they get into their conference and they don't play anybody. St. Mary's. So you can never get a true gauge on them. But I agree with everything you said, because that's exactly what I thought. They haven't had any pressure on them. No one's talking about Gonzaga. And it's not like they're not good. They're still good. So I don't see them getting out of that region because, oh boy, the two teams in front of them are really good. Mm-hmm. Gonzaga is not as good as, I don't think, either UCLA or Kansas. And man, I'll just flip a coin on that, to be honest with you. But I'll have to go with Kansas just because, I'd go with Kansas.
That's probably the smart pick. Unfortunately, I decided to go against the grain for whatever reason and put Gonzaga in. So we'll see how it plays out. The last region, the Midwest region. Obviously, the region that the Hoosiers are in. So let's go ahead and talk about these matchups. The number 1 seed, Houston Cougars, obviously the home of Kelvin Sampson currently, taking on number 16, Northern Kentucky. The 8-9 game features Iowa and Fran McCaffery against number 9, Auburn. The 5-12 matchup, Miami and Drake. We've talked about that a little bit today. And then we have Indiana's matchup against Kent State, the Golden Flashes. And then on the bottom side of that bracket, you got number 6, Iowa State, facing the winner of Mississippi State and Pittsburgh. You have number 3, Xavier, taking on Dustin Schutte's Kennesaw State Owls. And then the bottom 2 games, number 7, Texas A&M, taking on Penn State. And Texas facing the Colgate Toothpastes. No, I'm kidding. I don't know what their actual mascot is, but there you have it. Jimbo, what does Indiana have a path to the Final Four here, or where do you think the Hoosiers will end up, and who do you have coming out of this bracket?
Yes, they do actually, and especially now, since Houston potentially is going to be slightly not as powerful if they lose
Sasser.
Absolutely, because I think that is a team that has to be perfect to get far, being Houston, because they have not been challenged. They have not played the schedule that everybody else plays. And I'm not saying that they're not good, but they have not played this many good teams in a row, what they would have to play. And if they have to do it without Sasser, that's going to be difficult. Miami is in there. Nigel Pack, of course. Where is that? Yeah. Okay. Wrong one. Nigel Pack, former kid from Indiana, went to Kansas State, got $800,000 to transfer to Miami, but they're without their big man. They could be down as well, and that could all play in Indiana's favor. Now, Drake is tough, and Drake might win the game with Miami. Don't be shocked about that. Indiana, I think, beats Kent State, although Kent State's going to give them that's not going to be – there are no easy games in the tournament. So, I think Indiana can beat Kent State. I think Indiana can beat Drake. And moving forward, it's potential that Houston could get upset before Indiana gets to them.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, if Iowa has a shooting night like they're capable of having, they could – and I'm not saying they'll run Houston out of the gym, but Iowa can beat anybody when they're at the top of their game. They don't always play at the top of their game just because of the style of play that they incorporate. But if you get Iowa on the wrong night, you're toast. Indiana obviously has seen that firsthand.
Let's see. I'm just trying to look at – oh, yeah. And then, yeah, that's going to be interesting. I think that Indiana's definitely has a path now. I mean, I think because of if Houston's wounded, If Miami's wounded, man, it
In my
opens up.
opinion,
But
I
Indiana
think I
has to
said
play.
this.
This team has to play. They cannot take off. In the press conference, I asked, why Trace Jackson Davis talked about them getting lackadaisical, and I'm like, well, why? What can you do to not let that happen? I mean, you're playing to win. For why? It's only 40 minutes. Just stay locked in, man. Treat one game at a time. You have to lock in. They have to lock in for 40 minutes every time. They have to lock in, complete the mission, finish it, let it go, open up, and then come back and lock in again. But it's like they're in and out during the game. They charge for a while, then they're like, okay, I'm gonna take a break. Well, you can't do that. Even as hard
Hopefully
as
they
it is.
realize that this
if it was easy, everybody would do it.
I think it's a lot easier to, I don't know if this is the proper phrasing, but it's a lot easier to let your guard down in things like the Big Ten tournament when things like
No pun
rest
intended,
are on your
right?
mind. Huh?
No pun intended.
Did I use a pun?
Let your guard down.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking like that, but that's funny. I think we'll see enough consistency from Indiana to make a run. I think they're going to make at least the Elite Eight this year, and that's just based purely on. I think this is the most favorable draw that they've ever gotten, at least since the Tom Crean era. You definitely couldn't have gotten a better 1 seed to face if you have to face.
I can promise you, they would not want to be on the other side of that bracket.
But here's the thing. I'm not sure Texas. I think Texas is really good, but it wouldn't surprise me to see any of those teams upset Texas on the way to the Elite Eight. Because there's a lot of they've faced Iowa State already this year. Xavier's really good. It wouldn't surprise me if Penn State can win a couple of games if they can get hot. That's a tough side of the bracket to be on. A lot tougher than the side
Texas
Indiana's
is the best team over there.
And that's true, but there's a lot of good teams.
Texas is the best team in that region.
And they might be. I don't know that. I can't remember what I selected. Who I thought Indiana would be facing in the Elite Eight. I think it might have been Iowa State. I think I have Iowa State upsetting Texas if I remember correctly. But I've got Indiana finding their way to the Final Four, and I have never put Indiana in my Final Four when filling out a bracket. But I gave in this year because I think there's a legitimate shot that it could happen. Will it happen? Only time will tell. But there's definitely a real chance. And hell, they may lose to Kent State. We've talked about that today too. So
it's very possible. Texas is going to be a tough if they get to the Elite Eight and it's Texas, that's going to be an absolute.
You still have the same players. You're not facing Chris Beard this time, though. Chris Beard has nothing to do with it.
I don't care. They're still winning.
I'm just saying that takes away one aspect of what this team could have been.
No one cares about Chris Beard.
Anyway, so that makes my Final Four: Indiana, Gonzaga, Marquette, and Arizona. And I'll go ahead and tell you who I chose to win those games. I chose Gonzaga to beat Indiana. I chose Marquette to beat Arizona. And then I chose Marquette to defeat Gonzaga in the national championship.
Well,
it's a very obscure group of teams, but you never know.
You ain't lying.
No 1 seeds.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't know how long has it been? Have we ever had a Final Four without any 1 seeds?
I do not know. I do not remember. I cannot remember the answer to that. I will be honest with you.
And I'd say what a great if that were to happen for Marquette, what a great comeback story for Shaka Smart after being let go from Texas a few years ago.
I think it's already a great story what he's done there. It's phenomenal. He has them flying high, pun intended, Golden Eagles. But yeah, this is just going to be fun looking through all these. What are the matchups today in the first four in?
In the first four, we've got, at least in terms of the last four in
Mississippi
games,
State plays
Pittsburgh.
yeah.
And then you've
That's
also got
I
Nevada
don't know how
playing
Pitt got in
Arizona
here.
State.
They're a team that does not deserve to be in. How the hell do they get in over
Rutgers. I feel like Jeff Capel kind of complained his way into the NCAA tournament. He did a lot of complaining over the past couple of weeks about how tough the ACC is, even though
they were so tough. They were 7th in the net rankings among conferences.
So who knows? Pittsburgh, I don't see them winning tonight against Mississippi State. I think
I hope they
Mississippi
get
State will
bounced.
win.
Who else we got?
Arizona State and Nevada.
Ooh, oh my. The
Conference
Hurley
champions.
and Steve Alford.
That's right. Oh, I forgot Steve Alford was it.
Bobby Hurley and against Steve Alford, I believe.
And while we've got 1 minute left, just these last couple of games, Texas Southern and Fairleigh Dickinson and Texas A&M Corpus Christi versus Southeast Missouri State.
SEMO made it in.
Look at that. We did a whole 20 minutes going over the bracket.
That's awesome. Man, some great games to watch tonight. Hope you get to check them out. And then we'll be back to talk about the results tomorrow, in addition to talking about the upcoming NCAA tournament. Bob Kravitz will be with us. Rick Bozich, Kyle Nedrip will get you caught up on all the high school basketball tournament action in the state as well. And plenty more, whatever is happening in the world of sports, especially the Big Ten, college, and the games that are coming up that I can't wait for. I know everyone's excited. Don't forget, go to the ESPN thing that Pete set up. John, you remember all this?
Indiana Sports Beat fans, password Indiana with a capital I.
And that is at the ESPN
Tournament Challenge app, yes.
Tournament Challenge, ESPN fans, ESPN Sports Beat fans, right?
Indiana Sports Beat fans. There you go.
Indiana Sports Beat fans, Indiana. So get in that. Let's we're going to put a nice prize package together and see who wins that. Pete won it last year. See who I'm gonna beat him this year. Have a great day. Until tomorrow. Big thanks to Dustin Schutte, of course, Mike DeCourcy, and Chronic Hoosier. Of course, John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.